everyone. Welcome once again at the Pets & Co. with me, Lumia, Elias with me, and Dr. Sara sitting with us here. And today, what topic are we going to bring in? A very, very important topic, I must say, in Dubai at least, because with the number of adopted dogs or the number of dogs at home increasing, there's another number that is increasing in Dubai, and that is
daycares and boarding facilities.
So today we're going to talk about daycare and boarding facilities. So let's begin with the question, a very important question, which is how to pick a daycare.
Look, I think the concept of a doggy daycare and a boarding facility for dogs is a beautiful solution to dog owners. And when we look at these facilities, 15 years ago, let's say, there's, close to none, maybe one or two. And many of people who had dogs who had to travel either kept their dogs with someone who looked after them in their households or with their friends. The lifestyle in Dubai today dictates our working hours, and sometimes it's unpredictable. And also many of us have professional jobs that require us to travel, and we do still have our domestic pets and that need care while we're absent. Do dogs need to go to daycare? The right answer for this is no. But there is no escape from that today. So without judging anyone, myself, I'm in that line of work, and we try to look at it from a different lens today, because dogs don't really need to be in daycares, but they have to be in daycares because of our lifestyles. Then what is the best thing to do with dogs when they are in daycares and boarding is the question that needs to be asked.
I think the idea is what are you putting your dog into? Because when you say, no, they don't need daycare, what they don't need to do, and even the non-parents here are going to understand because they've all walked through the malls. If you see those indoor play areas with millions of screaming kids and loud music and noise in, you don't want to send your dog to that sort of facility.
Overstimulation.
Look,
when we look at it, going a step deeper here is every person who has a dog comes from a certain environment. And that dog is a different dog. Maybe it's from the same breed. There are general, traits, but there is also things that make a dog, more than that, and the relationship, the upbringing of the dog. And so every dog has a different character as well.
If you raise identical twins in separate environments, in different environments, they grow up slightly different. They'll have some similar characteristics, but there'll be some differences. Where we are, our environment formulates who we are as people and who dogs are. And say, the experience for every single dog we see is different.
And we have to take that into consideration, right?
Yes.
Because, the science, or today, the approach to scientifically keeping a group of animals together is called animal husbandry, right? And animal husbandry means welfare and enrichment, and there's a standard to both. Right, so this is, if I want to compare, a dog kennel into a horse stable, what's happening with horses is you're dealing with one population, right? And that population is, the stable owners' population, or if they're getting more horses in there, they go into quarantine. They stay, for example, 2 months in quarantine, and then they are, cleared to go with the general population. But you don't have dogs, like I was saying, with different characters, different breeds, different status of whether they're neutered, castrated, or not. And then, and not only that, also you have the behavior issues that the dogs are going to come through the door.
I think the summary then, if we're sending them to a daycare, what we want to do is send them to a safe space. Yeah, because all of these differences with the dogs that we see, each and every dog needs a unique and slightly different environment, which means that putting them into that massive free-for-all space is not appropriate for any one of those dogs. And therefore, we need to find a facility that covers those safety aspects, that the 5 Fs of freedom from fear, freedom from upset, all of those. And we need to find a space that as responsible parents for those dogs, that we find that space that suits the requirements for those dogs.
And when you say space, for me, the rules are, first, the space is safe from a perspective, I like to put it in this way, zero risk policy.
Yeah.
Right? Zero risk policy means risk on dogs, risk on humans.
Yes.
And when we look at that, meaning the facilities are designed in a way that allow, and they're customized around how dogs, for example, should maneuver in a space, taking into consideration unpredictable things that can happen. So there's too much calculation that goes in here.
Absolutely.
You don't leave things to chance.
My daughter's a vet student, and one of her good friends this weekend was working in a kennel facility in a different country and got nailed by a dog. She got bitten very badly, and she's just had to have surgery and 50 stitches in her upper thigh from a dog. So the person in that environment, the student who was there to learn, was not taken care of, was not looked after. Mm-hmm. There's police involved, there's all sorts of people involved for the safety of this young lady. But that's an environment that we need to protect from. And, as facility owners, that's our responsibility to protect against that. And that covers the dogs and the humans under our care.
Yeah, today, I was sitting with someone a few days ago, and a friend I didn't see for a while. Elias, what you're doing? So I'm I'm working with dogs. We have a boarding facility, training facility, a school for dogs. And he said, "Yeah, that's a nice business. I'm sure you're doing very well." I said, "You see, that's the problem. A lot of people think this is a business and it's a good investment, and a lot of them fail." And, I've had a long career for the past 20 years. I've worked in different fields. I can, tell you the hardest field that I've worked in and I've had to manage is this field. People underestimate what it takes. This is not only about investment. Investors can come and put money and build these beautiful big facilities. It will look aesthetically beautiful, but the detail that the dogs have to go through from getting them safe to start with is, no small feat.
I think if anyone listening to us goes and has a look at Elias's facility, what you'll see in there is the number of safety gates, features he has present in any of his facilities to stop unexpected dog encounters. One of the biggest threats for a dog is if it suddenly comes to face with another dog or a human that it's not expecting. So in a lot of the design aspects that he's put in there, you see that he's got the safety gates, he's got the mirrors, he's got all the different aspects that he uses to minimize the risk of those encounters and therefore minimize the risk of danger of injuries.
So how would you put this in a summary that a lot of people look out for? Now, first of all, it's amazing to know that there shouldn't be a daycare for dogs, but now there is, and there are so many of them. And people look out for the most spacious one, which has a swimming pool, it has a park, it has maybe 2-3 spaces for big dogs, small dogs.
Look, we often get compared to other facilities in terms of space. The actual thing about this, space is beautiful. And if I had more space, I would be doing more of the same, right? I wouldn't be using my space to have another 20 dogs running loose together. That's not how it works.
So if you can explain, how is your space at the moment for everybody?
I'll tell you before we jump into that, because we were on the safety topic. We want to make sure dogs are safe and no encounters happen with other dogs hurting themselves or humans getting hurt in the process, like your daughter's friend. For me, a human life is also a very precious life. And often that is overlooked in facilities like this, even by dog owners. They would,
Yes.
not give you proper information about their dog. Yeah, he can bite people, but I don't want any of my people to get bit. I need the proper information. That doesn't mean your dog is not going to be accepted in my facility. There's a program for your dog in the facility, but we need to deal with it in a different way. Right? So what we try to do is put a program together that allows us to help people who need help, not to limit who comes through our door, right? And this is not based also on commercial reasons. I believe in helping every dog that can be helped, and sometimes you can make a decision. Some dogs cannot be helped. But going back to the safety also means health, right?
Yes.
And health is like Dr. Sara was speaking about the doors, the safety nets, we have in place, but also how you manage this, the materials you use to build your facility, right? So everything has to be antibacterial, antifungal.
But can I say above any of that is the training that you give the staff, the training to make sure that people are both vigilant and stop disease from happening. There's training that people have that, simple things. We've all been through COVID. Washing your hands.
Yeah.
How do people clean themselves between? I'm saying patient because I'm a vet here, but between dealing with the various animals, between the various stages. One of my big bugbears is the water bowls in facilities.
Yeah.
If you sat in a room, would you expect to share glasses of water with everyone on the table? No, we wouldn't. And we wouldn't do that because we don't want other people's germs, quite simply. So putting a communal water bowl down means that you're just opening disaster. If anything in that facility has an infection of any nature, that is spread between you.
Yeah, you have an outbreak. We don't share water bowls. Definitely, it's a no-no. And for many reasons. One of them is, dogs who eat, for example, raw food, between dry food, or cooked food. Dr. Sara can shed more light on this. I have no personal preference on any, like do what you think is right. There's no one better than the other.
But it's not about personal preference. It's about exposing, with raw food, dogs do get exposed to more and different bacteria. And whilst that dog may have built up its resistance and be fine with what it's having and do very, very, very well on raw food, the difference in bacteria in that dog's mouth and the flora that it has compared to a dog that's fed in a different way will be completely different, and therefore will make that second dog susceptible to being very sick from exchange of bacteria, shall we say.
100%. And also, when you look at facilities, you look at, artificial grass is one of the things that, for me, should never have in a facility.
How do you clean it? There's no way of cleaning it.
Look, it's, I don't think it's cleanable. Many people will say it is. I don't want to argue with my peers in the industry. But, bottom line is, I believe there's a standard into the science of housing animals, and it comes with high demand requirements. So if you're going to do it, and you're in that line of work, your idea is to, if you want to be commercially sound, then you need to keep your population round the clock, at least safe and healthy. Now that is, easier said than done, because infections do slip through the door. But you would rather have a place that allows you to use your that allows your sanitization program to work, than allows you to fail, right? So what you're cleaning on, should be something that allows you to succeed. I can't just clean surfaces that are uncleanable because I can't reach the depth of the problem on a daily basis. And the cleaning is, if I walk into a facility and I want to take my dogs there, the first thing I ask is, how do you clean? What agents are you using to clean? And how often? And then I tap into, okay, so this is how you're cleaning the general areas. How often do you clean the rooms where my dogs are going to stay? How do you feed my dogs? How do you wash your water bowls? What's the staff protocol when an infection happens? And what's your transparency policy, on things when they happen? Because things do happen, right? But you want to be able to, and your staff needs to be trained to deal with it. And the protocol is, for example, a lot of people think, there's professional staff to have experience. Who qualified who? The only qualified people to work in the field of animals are people, today that go through, and if we want to say that out loud, people who have animal behavior degrees. And, these degrees are, obtained at university, and it's a very difficult study, right? So then we have the other portion, the dark side of our business is we have self-appointed dog trainers, self-appointed governing bodies that qualify dog trainers. Who qualified the boards to qualify people? I have no idea. You know, and then
I think the other thing that I would say, I mean, whether it's medical behavior or anything else, the fact that there are so many million methods to do something. I mean, from the veterinary field, if there's a surgical procedure where there's 10 possible ways of doing it, that means that nobody's found the right way yet. Okay? And if you've got 50 million ways of training an animal, nobody's found the ideal way, and that's because we're individuals.
yeah, and a lot of dog training is based on, like, let's say, the methods of Pavlov and Skinner. But people also tend to forget that these two guys, were on the human side of psychology, and stuff like that. They weren't on the animal side of psychology, so they have some principles. But today the principles have evolved.
I think, yeah.
But we do have to talk about, because training, of course, but in the daycare, the dogs are not getting trained. The dogs are just spending time there to be, active, safe, and then
I'll
go
tell
back
you
home.
exactly what happens. Any dog today, any good facility, what they do is they vet the dogs before they come through the door, right? Because they want to be knowing what they need to know what they're going to deal with. So whether I have a dog and that comes through the door, and many of the dogs here we see have a bit of anxiety, or they have social withdrawals, right? And the moment they come into facilities, they get overwhelmed for many reasons. Without going into too much depth, whatever the reason is, whether it is a dog that has behavioral issues of severe anxieties.
But relate that to us. Relate that to your first day in a new job. Relate that to your first day you're going on holiday and you walk into an airport that you've never been to before. And you're walking through that and you're trying to find your signs in whatever language that you don't understand and see. That is exactly how these dogs feel when they go into a different facility for the first time, because you've just
Many of them
plucked
are very excited. I mean, I've seen how they would be looking forward to going to the daycare. I mean, a lot of them are not really showing
A lot of us are excited about going on holiday, but it doesn't mean that you don't have the fears as well. And it doesn't mean, one of the things with that, you can probably explain this better than me, but if you're super excited, then your senses, we operate best, whether we're dogs, whether we're people, when we're in a calm environment. As soon as the adrenaline kicks in, as soon as we get into a heightened, whether that's fear or excitement, then our brains close down and our brains are looking for the fight-flight response. So our brains are automatically looking for the exit point or the dangers in that point.
Yeah, hyper-arousal is something you need to manage. The misconception of having a dog in a group that is highly charged and there's a lot of running happening around, I want my dog to be happy because he's with other dogs. Yeah, I can understand this, but that's not how really it works. Dogs they have a pack mentality, and this mentality is deep-rooted. And the packs, they choose themselves. And some dogs get eliminated from the pack in nature. This is how nature works, right? And then some dogs are part of that pack. And normally how these things are solved through conflict. So for us, what we see as conflict in dogs and dog aggression, it's natural outside, in the habitat, in nature. It's natural behavior.
But that's the very same as us. If we're put in an environment with a lot of people, a party, something like that, we automatically migrate and form small groups. That's what we do as humans. We try and find like people and we migrate to small people. And if you go to a party with 100 people in a room, okay, I'm an introvert, but majority of us that would go to that party would speak to maybe 5-10 people in that room. You look for somebody you know. If there's nobody you know, you look for somebody that gives off those signals to you that are probably attractive in terms of welcoming to you. And that's what dogs do. So if you're putting that dog in an environment with a massive number of others, some of whom have slightly messed up signals because they've not had the right socialization, you're putting them in a very, very stressful environment.
So if I'm sending my dog to daycare, is it a good thing that he or she is forming a group with another dog, or is it an unhealthy thing? Or
look, it's not only
the
about,
daycare should inform.
It's not about only having the dogs sit and play in social groups. It's like, today we have to structure things for dogs. I always say, and we said that in a previous episode, is what makes a dog, and it's senses, its ability to make decisions and deal with, making good decisions in the human world to deal with things. And when we look at it, I can't come and say I can house 200 dogs in a daycare facility and all 200 are going to be fine and not have conflict. We need to understand what we're dealing with. So
and even if the daycare says they're going to separate the 200 into categories.
Okay, but also we need to have a program. This is a detailed sort of environment. It's not even like, a kindergarten or a nursery or a school for children. At least with children, as they grow, they find their bearings, and the human brain is much complex to deal with things and easier to manage maybe.
I went to a meeting this morning at my daughter's school, and their classes are all getting mixed up for next year. And it's taken the teachers of 4 teachers in that year have each had the kids. There's support networks and everything else. Those teachers between them have taken more than 60 man-hours to decide how they're going to split up the kids into the best groups for next year. Okay, 60 man-hours, those teachers between them in terms of meetings that they've had together and everything else. And that's in a group of 5-year-olds.
I take back easier.
But so what I'm trying to say there is, these are kids that are managed, that have been in groups already, that have been in training for 2-3 years at school. And there's no way that without that insight, without that behavior training from the leaders, if you like, from the trainers in that facility, that you can just dump animals into a group and wait and see what happens.
But a lot of people who've got the daycares are not trainers. I mean, I can easily say that today we've got over 200 daycares in Dubai, and not all of them are dog trainers who form these daycares.
So I think back again to if you're choosing a daycare facility, what are you trying to choose? Are you trying to choose a soft play centre for your dog, or are you trying to choose a safe, controlled, organised facility for your dog to go in, where your dog's going to be in a safe space and be managed? And these really, really, really are the things that you need to be looking at.
Look, as I say, it's not easy. There are a lot of unpredictable things can happen. But with experience, with preparing your staff, you start to become more proficient in how you deal with things. The idea is not to learn on the account of your clients, and go with the flow. The idea is to be prepared before your clients come in. And if something unpredictable happens, there's a protocol to deal with it. So when we look at socializing dogs, for me, the program is, the dogs need to, for example, socialize in controlled socialization groups. It's not about having the dogs running around. There's a way to manage social groups. And then you take these dogs out of that environment, you give them a time to rest. And then
process,
and they need to calm down, because again, the term is day. And during the day, dogs like rest, and they sleep. And some people think we're using that as an excuse to put the dogs back into the rooms. But in reality, imagine I keep a child entertained all the time. And what I create is a child
monster,
unprepared to deal with life when they're bored, and they start to have anxieties or other issues. With dogs, there is studies, and I don't know how accurate these studies is, but it's also, again, not an excuse. Dogs that are going to daycares that are kept up all time in a very highly charged environment are more susceptible to get epilepsy.
I think, but I mean, you're more susceptible to a lot of things, because if you just look at the physiology of that, as soon as you have these animals in a stressed environment, they produce adrenaline, that your fight-flight hormones. And as soon as you're producing adrenaline is you produce adrenaline and you produce cortisol, which is natural steroids. As soon as you produce a large amount of steroids, one, you use up your body's reserves, you've got nothing left. But secondly, by opening that up, it means that your body produces less white blood cells, less defensive mechanisms with what you're doing. So your body, because it's been super stressed over a longer period, has less ability to fight off infection, fight off disease. On top of the mental tiredness of it, animals dogs, people, we all need time to walk away, to process what's gone on, to be able to learn and change our behavior or adapt our behavior for the next encounter.
So, Elias, can you describe a day for a dog at Everything Dog and School of Foof?
So the day is structured around how dogs need to operate, through the way they take the way they're programmed to do. The way they're programmed is basically, they're using their senses, right? And, they need to have some physical, movement that suits every dog in its life stage. And when I look at it in this way, I say, okay, we're going to work on the socialization of dogs with dogs that can be socialized. Many dogs, we presume they can be socialized, but they can't. And they need to do something different. So the activity for them becomes a different program. So we do, for example, I look at it as a school, I always say this. And the school is, you have your social groups, and then you have your rest, and then you start your school, the bell rings. Yeah. And the school starts with, today we're going to focus on advanced obedience or basic obedience. And we use this skill set to train dogs to do things in groups. So we have better control over the dogs. One, for us in the facility, because you don't want to be chasing dogs and running dogs, when they're running around and zooming. The second thing is we look at it from a domestic point of view. So dog owners have requirements from their dogs. And we look at these and we say, okay, why don't I incorporate that in school? Because the dogs are with us anyway, right? So we're going to set up the homeowners, the dog owners for success. So we incorporate that in our program. So we start training the dogs to do things in highly charged environments of distractions. Slowly, we progress from basic into advanced stuff, and we work with them in distractions. So they start to listen to their owners in their household or in different environments.
And this is happening while they're at the daycare. You're not talking about training. Excellent.
And then the other thing we incorporate in the program is some, let's say, your PE class, your soft PE class. And, we use different agility platforms that are not, your crazy, 2-meter A-frames or stuff like this, because you also don't want to injure dogs. Disaster can strike, so you have to think about this, right? So we have equipment that we use that allows the dog to exercise and get, for example, we get stressed dogs. One of the best ways to let a dog settle down is you work on, the stress, the cortisol, and you remove it through exercise, and you start to introduce, more happy hormones, dopamine, for example, right? And that allows the dog, slowly with time, with repetition, and making the dogs feel well. For example, a dog that's stressed and you can't get anywhere with it, and you start slowly, the first day, the second day, and just working on sit, and you're encouraging the dog. The dog gets more happy, gets more settled, allows us to do more things with the dog, and then we start to do more physical ability stuff like the agility stuff, and then, for me, recently, in the beginning of the year. What I started to see is, okay, we're doing both of these things, but also we are not taking into consideration, what vets deal with or dog owners can potentially deal with is the dogs hip dysplasias or ligament issues or, muscles or core muscles. Really, many dogs, they don't have them. Right, and every dog in Dubai typically, or most dogs typically, what they're doing, and we think that we're enriching our dogs and we're exercising our dog through taking our dogs on walks. Right, there's some dogs, they will outwalk you every day, 10 times a day. So what exercise are you actually giving your dogs that's enriching for your dogs is debatable here. But what we like to do is take that and say, okay, we need to work on the core and the strength of the dogs. And we've hand-built these platforms that we use that allow us to, work on strengthening the core of the dog, and at the same time, the coordination of the dog, especially with puppies or with older dogs. So some older dogs, they can't be doing high energy stuff and jumping. They hurt themselves, yeah? But if I'm able to use that program to give them a bit of rehabilitation so they have more, maneuverability in their joints, that also adds value, The compass is always towards the animal we're dealing with, the dog. And if we look at it from this perspective and we say, okay, what do we do with dogs when they are in our care? Because we are the professionals, right? And we need to be telling our clients what their dog needs. So we cover these things. And, the dogs have a nice program throughout the day. And, so the dog is going home literally enriched. So we don't say that with we're enriching your dog through training your dog, and we're not training your dog for 15 minutes, and we enriched your dog today. Or your dog has been very enriched because we threw tennis balls in the daycare area, and the dogs are chasing around them, and then, that's a formula for disaster, but some people do that, right? And there has to be a high level of control. You need to control your environment to make it safe, to make it healthy and enriching for your dog. So this is how we manage in the daycare. So the program runs from, say, with dogs that are boarding with us, they do the program. Dogs that come to daycare, they do the program.
So it's not daycare, it's a school.
It's a school.
They come and it's organised.
Yeah.
It's organised activities through the day that they do, and they're managed and looked after, which is great.
I like to see more of that happening around us.
I think we'd all like to see that. I think this is certainly, as a vet, what I want to see coming through my door is a happy, well balanced dog that is healthy physically, is healthy mentally, and when it walks into the facility, it's able to manage with walking into a slightly strange environment and not show those aggressions, not show those fears. Whilst it sounds crazy, I think when I first qualified as a vet, we went through a phase in the old days where your dog goes to the vet, you stab it with a needle, you chuck it out the door. Yeah, that's what happens. And nobody thought about the whole mental well-being of those dogs. And, thankfully that's changed a lot today. And I mean, what I would say is I can tell 100 times more from a dog that's relaxed than I can from a stressed dog. If the dog's stressed, its tummy goes hard, I can't feel it, I can't do anything with it, I can't see its natural behaviours. The way I find out what's wrong with a dog is having that dog relaxed in my environment and showing me. And that needs to happen with the dog in the daycare as well, is that when it goes in there, it's relaxed and it shows its natural behaviours and also acts well through the day.
And also when the dogs display behavioural changes, or they're ill, or their urine changes, or the stool changes, you're prepared to deal with these things.
I mean, back to what we need from a daycare. I think we talked there about the safety. We talked about the mental well-being, the physical well-being that we talked about. The health of that. What you just started to allude to there was people who are watching these dogs in small groups learn their dogs a lot better. And by learning the dogs, you see these natural behaviours. By learning these dogs and by teaching the staff, these staff pick up on infinitesimally small changes in the dog. He's just holding his legs slightly different to what he did last week. Can we keep an eye on that? Down to the bigger, he's coughing. That's possibly infectious. I've trained you to say if he coughs, then we need to put our emergency protocols in place because respiratory diseases spread like wildfire. He's coughing. Let's stop. Let's isolate. And these things are so important from both the sort of veterinary side and the facility side that you have people who are trained to spot these changes and that the facilities have that interaction with the owners of the dog to turn around and say, these are the protocols we've got in place. If he coughs, he goes to the vets and he's isolated until we're told otherwise.
And also, Dr. Sara, it is a mutual relationship.
Yes.
I like to deal with clients that are also very considerate of other clients. If you see your dog that has symptoms or a change on the day, you don't have to send him to daycare. Send him to the vets. If you can't take them to the vets because you have a busy schedule, call us. Like my clients, call me. I will arrange it for you. Yeah. I will send your dogs to the vet. Don't send him to me because he has to go to daycare. Call me. I will arrange a pickup for free of charge. I will send them to your vets. Get it done. For me, this is how, that relationship has to be mutual. It goes both ways. So, because the idea is to protect the whole population. When I was speaking about the stables from the horses and how it is a much easier environment to manage. When we look at our area, it is a beast to manage. It's so hard, Dogs come from different walks of life. Some owners don't take their dogs to parks. Some do. my opinion on parks is a no, and that's another day, another topic. But some dog owners, their dog gets a bit sick, they immediately on it with a vet. Some aren't. Someone sees a dog that has, like many things we see is, a dog comes in to stay with us over the weekend, for example. Yeah, the dog has diarrhea like the second day. We call the owner and we say, your dog has just had diarrhea. How would you like me to take this through? And what has the dog eaten? Has he eaten something different? Come on, it's not about, one day the dog has diarrhea. What's been going on for the past week? My question is, and sometimes, this stuff happens. So you expect sort of a two-way streak. Allow me to, at the moment, take care of your dog. Let me take your dog to the vet. Let's get your dog into treatment, even if you're traveling for longer. Let's always look after the.
So back to, this is exactly what you need from a daycare. So you're talking about the health of the dog, the safety of the dog, the mental well-being of the dog. And
what are the common diseases or viruses one would be, should be concerned of sending dogs to daycare? Because we've like you said, we've discussed so many aspects. Like because a lot of owners have no idea that daycares are spreading, these. It's not just because you took them to the park or you took them to,
I think,
a restaurant.
It's not daycare sort of spreading them. What happens is as soon as you have a few individuals from different walks of life in one space, any bugs that anybody has get shared. So I think as a daycare facility, what you need to do is you need to have entry criteria onto that. So for the entry criteria, there are some killer diseases that we vaccinate dogs against. Those include things like parvo.
But these are not common in the daycare. The ones that, for example,
they can be.
They can be.
They can be.
They can be. But what you need to do is to have a vaccination protocol so that these dogs are actually vaccinated before they come into the facility, and there's been plenty of time for that vaccination to take hold and work on the animal, and also that we've tested to make sure that those vaccines have taken on those animals. There are blood tests you can do to make sure that the antibodies, so if the antibody is the defense against that specific disease, are high enough to mean that if that animal sees the disease in the wild, that it it should be able to defend its body against it rather than getting very sick from it, which is what vaccinations do. So, and a vaccination is simply giving a very small controlled portion of that disease to the body and turning around and saying to the body, this is one of the real nasties out there. Look at this disease, learn it, recognize it, be able to fight it faster when it comes. That's what a vaccination does. So it helps your body to recognize something much, much faster at that first line and be able to stop it from spreading into the body. So, make sure that the vaccination protocols are in place. Make sure that the healthcare facility, that the daycare facility has the healthcare policies in place that they can isolate. Make sure that if you talk to any of the staff in there, that they will be able to tell you what would happen if your dog was sick or if somebody else's dog was sick. And I think importantly from that, as you walk around, ask any of the healthcare, when you go and visit these places, ask anyone that's there who that dog is, what that dog is. And I would expect in a facility where I've got full-time staff that any of my employees would be able to turn around and say, oh yes, that's Jack, he's just here, it's his first week, I think he's really enjoying it. Or, I don't know, Fluffy's been with us for 2 years, she's one of our old soldiers, we love her to bits. But I expect them to know the pets inside out and to know characteristics of each of them.
We've discussed a lot of aspects of daycare in depth, and then I think this topic can go for hours and hours, but because we've got short of time. So another thing to touch on is the cost of these daycares. A lot of owners are concerned and they send the dogs to a daycare which is economically suiting them than the dog. And obviously there are daycares who are doing everything that should be done for the dog, and the cost is not as per the owner. So how do you best go in the balance, and what should be a daycare or,
I would say for anybody listening that the cost of getting it wrong is so much higher than the cost of getting it right first time. So, don't be swayed on the idea of cost to go to a poorer facility. Have your standards, stick with your standards. Do not reduce those standards for anyone. But, a good daycare facility will cost a bit more, but make sure that it's costing more for the right reasons. I don't want it costing more because it's providing a plasma TV for my dog. I want it costing more because they have trained the staff, that they have the staff and they have their programs and they're doing things properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Our operation is expensive, and Dubai is getting more expensive, no?
But it's on the staff, not on the silly frilly things.
Things are, starting to get more expensive as the years pass, as the months pass, and, training your staff and getting qualified people or people that you can actually transform to do what you want them to do, come with, a salary bracket, if you like. The way we want to clean our facilities and the material we use in the facilities and how we would like to maintain our facilities come with a price tag as well. And also, in the end of the day, for me, is the expertise that you are paying for. It's either you're going to go and, buy a car that will, get
Every
you
month in the garage.
somewhere, or you're going to go and get a luxury sports car, as simple as this. I don't like to be compared to other facilities because there's no comparison in terms, it's not apples to apples, right? There are certain facilities that can be put in the same category, and there are other facilities that can be put in another category. I like us to be looked at in a way where, bottom line is this. I have anxiety from that facility that we operate today. And that anxiety is beautiful for my clients because it keeps me on my toes every day to think about how we need to practice on a daily basis to make sure every dog in our facility is getting what they want and they are safe. This is what always keeps me up, at night. And when we get it right, we don't shut down. We continue to think on how to improve. And this is how my brain ticks.
Continual improvement.
There is no science. Yeah, there is no science that has stopped and reached its limits. This is an ongoing growth, and it has to continue. The idea of just opening facilities because they are bigger and more lucrative, for me, is not the answer. The answer is, we are today at a crossroad. People are getting clever in how to take information from the internet and listening to professionals who have an influencing base on what they need to be doing with their dogs today. And there is a shift from how the industry is working today into how there needs to be a change in, I need my dog to be doing that in that daycare as well.
I mean, from that, just talking about staff and everything else, interesting article I was reading the other day. If you look at shifts of costs in a veterinary practice, so in a small animal veterinary practice, 15 years ago, the expensive of that practice was about 45% of the revenue coming in through the door was spent on staff. In a small animal practice, in a good practice, that should be up at 65, 70%. It's a massive shift in staff costs and what we're providing for things. And that, you almost need to look around the daycare and say, where have you spent your money? Quite simply, where have you spent your money? Have you spent your money on staff, or have you got that one dopey little person in the corner who's moving the mop over the same grey mop over the same area of ground that has been there for the last 20 minutes and has no ability to do anything else? Or do you have staff that are engaged, staff who are looking after, staff who know what they're doing? And staff are who you're looking for. You're looking for who is running the facility. Forget the plasma TVs. Make sure that you've got the training and the staff.
Agreed. I feel today sometimes we get judged on our ability to send media content to our client base, right? And if you don't send, sometimes, it causes, an issue with clients. But, but we try our best to manage. And one of the most key positions that today we have in our company is we have someone who is hired and in charge of creating that content and sending it to the clients. But if this is where the facilities are being judged and you're forgetting everything else that the facility needs to do throughout the day to make sure your dog is actually doing what it needs to be doing, you got the balance wrong. Don't judge facilities from their ability to send you a picture, because the picture is manipulated. In all situations, it can be manipulated.
Never you would send.
You are manipulating the setting, and people, there is a manipulation to the setting. There is a manipulation to show the dog is comfortable or happy. It can be like this, and there's this misguiding the clients.
Most of the time, I think they take portraits of the dogs and they send like.
I invite always. I tell our clients, and come to the facility any moment and walk in the back. I have access. I'll give anybody access. But with us, walk
any time of the day, not like specific visiting hours.
But if you're expecting posts on your dog every 30 minutes through the day, then somebody is solely concentrating on that rather than doing anything with your dog.
Look, we had to cater for that. We hired someone to do that. And I also like that content. But that content is not the measure of whether your dog is happy or not.
No.
You measure facilities like we were saying in the start. Their safety, the ability to take care of the dog, the ability to act when something happens. Because
their ability to recognize that something is going to happen or has happened.
And the protocols they have in place.
Yes.
There's complexity in how we do things. Don't underestimate it. Really, when you're choosing for your dogs, choose wisely where your dog is going to end up going. Don't underestimate lack of knowledge and lack of expertise with handling dogs. There are enough stories of abuse that we in the industry, because we are in the industry, we hear about, we see,
and we've seen.
It circulates, and the dog owners, unfortunately, they never know, what's going on with their dogs, and that's where more management, more vetting, choosing the right people, and making sure the management also tackles these issues, and transparency is everything. I always say, come to the facility any moment in the day, walk in the back, walk in the front, ask me to see what's going on, and you can see the cleanliness, the programs, it's like a beehive. It doesn't stop round the clock. And especially when you're boarding your dogs for a long period of time, you want your dogs to also be mentally stable.
I think even more so in Dubai, where particularly in the summer we have that harsh climate and our dogs can't go outside and do the same. Mental stimulation is equal to, in fact, often much more powerful than physical stimulation of the dogs, and does tire them out and does tax them and cover that enrichment that they crave and need.
I think it's very interesting to talk about the features, the operations, the setup, how and why there is a daycare, and I think we can tap into it more probably in one of the coming topics where we talk about training, because again, like Elias said, that it's not just a park that you're sending your dog to, it's a school. And I mean, I would rather send my dog to a school than just a park, because I don't know what's happening in the park, but I do know what's happening in the school. A lot more to talk about as we touch this topic, but as the time is a constraint, so we have to wind up. Anything that you would want to say, because I know that this topic is something that really we want to talk about it more, but anything that you would want to say before we switch?
I think just those important points, your cleanliness, your safety sort of mentally, physically for your pets that go there, and that's safety, cleanliness. See what they're trying to do with your dog, and make sure that it fits in with everything that you need.
For me, it is try to understand that a dog is an animal with a purpose. It's not only a companion animal, and it has high-level requirements. When it goes in your, your daycare, your park, or it is with you in your household, there are certain things that the dogs need to keep them, sane, taken care of, healthy. And this is what you need to be looking for, a place that complements that for you, a place that allows you to learn that information as well, a place that's going to also transform and add into your knowledge. It's a relationship, between us and the dog owners, because ultimately the compass is the dog. And if that is the priority, then we should always try to give that information, even if that information sometimes, is falling on deaf ears. But that doesn't stop us from doing what we think is right, according to the best of our knowledge, our research, our homework, and years of experience in what we do.
So advocating for the dog.
Yeah.
100%. This goes beyond commercial aspects. The idea
100%.
is not to rack a large number of dogs. It's doable, it's difficult, it needs hands-on, it needs to, a highly trained staff, a program that can cater to these things. At the moment, like with us, we can only cater with, so much, because we want to keep the program rolling out. We want every dog to go
But that's the same. I think a good facility is a facility that knows its limits and doesn't try to burst at the seams to get that extra 1 or 2 in, to squeeze the numbers to try and get more in, because that detracts from every dog there if you're trying to squeeze those numbers and the safety margins.
And then you start to drop your quality, and then dogs start to decline quickly, and you start to see, behavioral shifts. And
with all that said and discussed today, because our topic today is daycare, please, the doors are open. You are most welcome to come meet Elias or see the daycare and the school that he has built. It's called Everything Dog and School of Woof.
Look, we having said that, but this is not only about us. This is about, getting it right for dogs in Dubai, because this is booming, it's happening. We do have a requirement for it. Make sure we do it right. This for me is more about awareness and, taking care of the message that the priority is the dogs. It's not the how the businesses need to be run from a commercial perspective. The dog is the priority. Take care of the dogs. Make sure you do it right. If you are in that field, you know what needs to be done. If you are an expert on animals or you're an animal behaviorist, you know the rules of welfare and enrichment. Knowing these rules means you need to know what your practice needs to be doing. Mm-hmm. Don't undermine them. Get it done. It protects us. It protects all of us. It protects the dogs, and we keep things at bay. There's a big shift happening in the world, and we're seeing dog breeds banned, and we're seeing a lot of nasty stories, and dogs are becoming more popular, and the population needs to be managed by the responsibilities on all of us. That's why for me we're doing that show, and if there's something that we can give and people can learn from that, that's the whole point. So,
and these are not just words. I mean, the reason I was saying is because they can actually go and witness what you're saying is in function. It's happening. There is a facility that is looking after. And again, for everybody else who've got the facilities to learn from, and like Elias said, that make it better for dogs.
Yeah, it has to be inclusive. It can't be exclusive. The idea is inclusive, and the information is inclusive. And if there is anyone in the future who can come also with us on the show, and we speak about these things and we shed more light, this is what we need to be doing.
By setting standards, we can build on standards, and we can improve for all.
Yeah, together we're all in this together. So working together
it's a community, 100%, and there is enough for everyone out there. Everybody have their weaknesses, have their strengths, and together we can create this sort of standard that fits and works for the dogs in our care. Ultimately, as always, the compass is towards the dogs.
Thank you, everybody, for being with us today. Again, I would say that it was a very interesting topic. And still, if you have more comments, more questions, feel free to leave your comments or reach out to Dr. Sara or Elias. They are most welcome. They're most happy to answer or meet you. We'll be back with another interesting topic. Stay tuned. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for listening.